And now, as promised, my exclusive interview with former New York mayor and attorney for President Trump, Rudy Giuliani. We're joined now by former New York mayor, Rudy Giuliani, and now counsel to the Trump team. Mayor, how are you? Good to see you.
Nice to be with you, Laura, always.
So you made a lot of news last time you were on this network on the, let me see, what was the issue? Reimbursement of payments to Michael Cohen for the Stormy Daniels settlement. Now we find out in the disclosure forms that, indeed, the president did disclose that. Was this done a couple of weeks back on the network because you knew this was coming out?
Sure, absolutely. And the president was fully aware of it, and the president endorsed a strategy. We wouldn't do it without him. He's the client, after all, and has tremendous judgment about things like this. And I think the OGE, Office of Government Ethics, basically agreed with us that it has been fully disclosed. I have a little disagreement with him, but it's a petty one. I don't believe it had to be disclosed at all, because I think it was an expenditure that he reimbursed.
You say it's an expenditure.
They say it's a liability.
He says it's a liability, yeah. Which is important for campaign finance, or is it important for disclosure purposes?
That's it, for disclosure purposes, which we decided out of an excess of caution. As a lawyer, you would know, as an excess of caution, we're going to disclose it.
This is what he said today in a letter. OGE has concluded that the payment made by Mr. Cohen is required to be reported as a liability. OGE has determined that the information provided in the note meets the disclosure requirements for reportable liability under the Ethics in Government Act.
So we agree with that he disclosed it. We do not agree necessarily that it's I don't agree that it's a liability, because I know the nature of it. But it doesn't matter at this point. It gets us out of...
Walter Shaw, Rudy, says, another former ethics officer, says this is tantamount to a criminal referral.
No, it's not.
That's what he's saying.
You just read the language.
No, Walter Schaub is another former government ethics officer, yep, who's basically saying, yippee, our government ethics officer has gotten him. This is tantamount to a criminal referral.
No, it's not. If it was, it would say criminal referral. All right. And second, the fact is that the president disclosed everything he could disclose. He can't disclose more than he knows. And we're very comfortable with it. And we think it vindicates our original strategy. Also vindicates the fact that Mueller should now bring this to a close. It's been a year. He's gotten 1.4 million documents. He's interviewed 28 witnesses, and he has nothing, which is why he wants to bring the president into an interview. And we're demanding from him, tell us what you have to get from an interview that you don't already have, because he has all the facts to make a decision.
Why would you agree to an interview now? I mean, a lot of us former criminal defense attorneys have been mulling this for some time. I mean, given everything that has been discovered about holding back documents and possible, animus toward the president, why would you agree under any circumstances to allow President Trump to go in there?
There would be a narrow area where we might agree if they could tell us why they need it. They have his explanations of everything. They have 1.4 million documents. They have the witnesses who corroborate him. If they're going to disbelieve him, they're going to disbelieve him. And the fact is, we would have to know, what is it that you want clarified? If we knew that, and they told us that if we gave the explanation that we're proposing, they were going to end it, fine. We're trying to get him to end this. This is not good for the American people. And the special counsel's office doesn't seem to have that sort of understanding that they're interfering with things that are much bigger than them or us.
You said today there's a plan B and C if Mueller doesn't wrap this thing up. We're entering the second year. You guys are very well aware of how much time and effort this takes to answer these questions, ongoing investigation. Bill Clinton found that out. What is the plan B and C?
Well, we are going to demand an answer. We're going to we cooperated beyond any other president ever cooperated. All those documents, 1.4 million, all those witnesses.
But what's the plan B and C, Rudy? Is this firing Mueller, firing Comey, firing Mueller?
Then we just start from day one again, as the president pointed out. What we're going to do is we're going to see what kind of legal remedies are available to us, including if they subpoena us, challenge the subpoena. The same reason they can't indict him constitutionally.
Which Mueller agreed today. He's going to abide by no indictment of the president.
Right. But I don't think they agree to the process question, which is the same reason they can't indict him, they can't issue a subpoena to him. And remember, Clinton opposed a subpoena, and then he voluntarily complied. He didn't give up presidential prerogative. And then his administration wrote a memo saying they can't do that.
Your old pal Michael Avenatti today on MSNBC.
I think we haven't met.
Yeah, I'd like to see that back and forth. Said the following.
These folks can't get their story straight. They can't figure out what they want to do. What they should be doing is telling the truth, and they should have told the truth a long time ago. Mr. Giuliani, as recently as a week ago, has been lying to the American people about how this occurred and when it occurred, because according to the disclosure today, it occurred back in 2017.
I don't think I ever changed that. The payment to her took place in 2017. No, the reimbursement was 2017. The payment, I think, was 2016. So he wasn't there for it. I don't know. Look, Avenatti is some kind of a, I don't know what he is. I don't think he's a real lawyer. He's a make-believe lawyer. He's got all kinds of lawsuits. I think the guy is trying to bail himself out with this case. His law firm went.
California bar is now investigating.
I don't want to talk about him. I want to talk about Mueller. And Avenatti means nothing to us. He hasn't made a single allegation against the president.
You're not worried about Cohen? You're not worried about what's happening in the Southern District of New York?
Not a lick. We're completely uninvolved in that. We've gotten assurances that we're not involved in it. It's only about Mueller getting the darn things over with, and he owes that to the American people.
The head of that kind of left-leaning ethics group, Committee for Responsible Ethics in Washington, has said, well, because we just learned about this liability recently that the president disclosed, we're wondering what other liabilities are out there. They issued a long statement today. They were involved in filing, I guess, the action which led to the disclosure of these statements.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Other liabilities that the president might have taken on.
I can't possibly respond to all of the president's political enemies any more than mine. I always ignored them. I think their statements are not worth anything. Everybody knows that they have this animus to the president, so who cares what they say?
How many meetings have you had with the Mueller team?
One, and we have 5 letters to them. 3 going back to John Dowd and Jay Sekulow, and 2 from Jane Raskin, Marty Raskin, and I to them for things that we need to know. We had no response from them. They've basically just.
Wait, you're asking for.
We're asking for what do they really need to know? What kind of assurances do we have that they'll get it over with quickly, like they did for Clinton? You know, we didn't ask, although I wanted to, but they overruled me. I wanted to ask for Hillary Clinton treatment. I wanted the report 2 weeks in advance, clearing my client. Then I wanted no oath. Then I wanted just an interview, questions in advance. We didn't get Hillary treatment, but I wouldn't want it because
no stenographer.
President would have been embarrassed if that ever the case.
There is concern that the DOJ is not turning over documents unless they're basically threatened with contempt of Congress. Devin Nunes has been maligned by the liberal media. Every time he asks for documents, he's been criticized for not reading some of them, but he's been maligned for doing so. What is your sense, given your background, obviously as a U.S. attorney, your vast experience as a U.S. attorney, what's going on with the relationship
I was the
between...
Associate Attorney General, had pretty much the role that Rosenstein has now, because I ran the criminal side of the Justice Department. I can't imagine not complying with a request for such sensitive documents with Congress. They won't give up the authorization to proceed against Manafort or against Cohen. Why? Judge Ellis really laid into them pretty hard. We noticed we were having a pretty good dialogue with them until that happened. I think they're shell-shocked. They're the darlings of the media. All of a sudden, their integrity is put in question about the tactics they've used, indicting Manafort. 2005? President didn't know Manafort in 2005, or if he did, there was no kind of meaningful relationship.
Well, you guys follow the story that John Solomon broke about this Russian oligarch, Oleg Deripaska, who was visited by the FBI in New York. He had a very brief diplomatic visa. He's on the sanctions list, he believes unfairly. And he's visited by the FBI, according to Solomon's reporting, very well sourced. And they say, we have this idea that Paul Manafort was colluding with the Russians for the Trump campaign, and implicit, do you want to help us in the conversation? Right. And Deripaska, who can't stand Manafort because he's in a litigation with him, said, I don't like this guy, but the idea that Manafort is colluding with is ridiculous. He basically laughed them out of the room. It doesn't look like any of this was disclosed. What does that tell you if the FBI is trolling this theory?
It tells you they're doing what they're used to. Remember, one of their principal litigators was held to be ethically irresponsible for not turning over exculpatory information. So if we ever
talk about Weissman and Enron?
If we walked into a hearing with them, I don't know what they wouldn't tell us. I know they have plenty of they have only exculpatory information about us. I've been through the documents. So it's about time to get the darn things over with. It's about time to say, enough, we've tortured this president enough. Meanwhile, look at what he's accomplished with all this on his back. It's like a big weight on his back. Korea, China, look at what's going on with Iran, finally doing away with that ridiculous sellout agreement.
Marco Rubio was asked about this push to try to use this oligarch, some kind of collusion theory, and he said this.
If there is a conflict of interest at some point and it's born to be true, it would jeopardize the investigation.
Yeah, I think that's right. What about placing a spy in the Trump campaign?
Do you believe that happened?
I don't know.
Does the president believe that happened?
I don't think we want to believe it or not. People who break into Manafort's home in the morning in a white-collar case when he was producing documents, who break into Cohen's law office, a law office? I mean, I never did that. I was a pretty aggressive prosecutor. I also never had the benefit of an interview in deciding whether to prosecute or not. I didn't need it. These guys are going way beyond what is normally done in prosecutorial tactics. And it's a shame that the Justice Department, because they're politically frightened, doesn't sit on them and say, you have to abide by our rules.